everybody. This is Lori, and I am the founder and CEO of Inclusivi-TEA, and we are all about justice, kindness, and sustainable fashion. And this is our podcast, Inclusivi-TALKS, and today I am incredibly lucky to be interviewing Tracey Peer, who is one of the artists who is contributing to Artists Who Share, an auction supporting coronavirus recovery. So, Tracey, thank you so much for being here. It's such a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm glad.
So, Tracey, I wanted to start out by just asking you, the first question I always like to ask is, how did you get to art? Like, how did you first know you were an artist? At what time in your life, and how did that happen?
Well, I would have to say that I've always been very creative
Mhm.
and art. I loved art since I was a little girl, and I would do all kinds of crafts and activities with my great grandmother, actually.
Mm.
And I would sit for hours making Christmas balls, making all kinds of paintings, and that's where it started. And then I think as you get older and you become a teenager and everything, you kind of lose focus on some things. And I then wanted to see the world. And then after I had children, I really got back into my painting after my kids were probably in elementary school, and they actually ended up both being very gifted artists.
That's
So
exciting.
interesting. So through my children and through friends that I have encountered who are also artists,
Mhm.
I studied with an artist that sold a lot of her paintings up in Maine,
Mhm.
Nantucket, and it all came back to me. And that was it. I started, doing paintings of all of my travels and
Mm.
selling them. And I came up with my own website. I've done a lot of galleries and in both New York and New Jersey because I was in the Northeast. So, but now I am in the South.
Okay, so Tracey, when you were doing this art with your grandmother, are your grandmother or your great grandmother?
Great grandmother.
And was she an artist herself?
I think she was an
Mhm.
artist in her own sense. I think she was probably taught by her grandmother or her
Mhm.
mother. I think it was a generational thing, and we were pretty much self-taught for a long
Mhm.
time until I studied with someone for a while to pretty much get the basics.
Mhm.
And then I think you kind of find your own way or your own emotions start coming out on the painting.
Yeah.
And that's when I think I discovered that I was truly an artist is when I started painting my own way.
Yeah. Oh, that makes so much sense. So when you kind of defined it for yourself, you knew
Exactly.
that you were an artist. I like that. I
Yes. It
like
was
that.
like I was taught the basics and
Mhm.
the way someone else painted. But then I started going off on my own and doing things.
Yeah.
And she would look at me like, "What are you doing?"
And you said, "Ha ha."
I don't know, but it feels really good.
Oh, awesome.
She goes, "I don't
So,
know how that's working, but it works."
but it does. So with your grandmother, were there certain things that you've like now it sounds like you do a lot of like when you go on vacation, you paint the places you've been. When you
Yes,
were younger, was there something in particular that you like to draw or paint or whatever medium you were using?
yes. Actually, when I was younger, it was interesting. I did a lot of watercolors.
Okay.
So, and I would do like animals and
Mhm.
people and landscapes. And when I got back into art, I switched over to oils because I just love the flow of oils, and it just seems that there's a lot more flexibility and able to the way they lay on the canvas and the effects you can get with oils is just incredible. They can even look like watercolors.
Mhm.
So I just love the
It's yeah, the kind of paint people choose is pretty interesting because I've talked to artists who just just love acrylics and don't ever want to touch oils, and
flow.
partially because oils that they feel are so unforgiving
Right.
in
And
some
I
way.
find it opposite. I know.
Okay, interesting.
Yes, yes, because I feel like with the oils, I get a lot more vibrancy,
Hmm.
and I love vibrant colors.
I
So,
love that.
yes. So
So,
oil is my favorite.
so when you started working with this artist became a mentor, how did
Yeah.
you do that? Because I'm fascinated by that sort of finding the person to work with. How did you do that?
Well, it's interesting because a fellow friend of mine who actually went to art school,
Hmm.
she had found the woman at an art event, and she had joined a group, and she actually taught out of her home.
Hmm.
And she was like, "Oh, I belong to this group of older ladies." And the artist Eleanor Morehouse, she's a really well known artist up in the Maine, Nantucket area, and she sells in galleries there, and she's running classes out of her home. Would you like to join me? So it's every Wednesday just for like 3 hours, 3 or 4 hours. So when my kids were in school, her and I would jump in our car and drive about 30 minutes to Eleanor's house and sit with all these ladies. And she would give us pointers and lessons, and we would just start painting. And we would meet every single week for years,
I love that.
5 years.
What a wonderful way to learn.
It was amazing
And
because
did Oh, go
you
ahead. I'm so sorry.
also, well, that's okay. You're also learning from someone who's been around the block,
Right.
who's experienced a lot regarding the art world and the art, even though it has changed tremendously
Mhm.
from then till today.
And did the same women stay in the group the entire
Oh,
time?
the entire time.
It's incredible.
Yes, it's like nobody wanted to leave. Like
Oh, I love that.
it was such an enjoyable experience. It really was.
Now, have you done any teaching of art? Have you had anyone that you've kind of helped?
I have. I actually, for a couple years,
Mhm.
we had another artist. I somehow managed to come across many amazing artists, luckily, in my local community. And I did belong to an art league for a while. And one of the ladies there, myself, we started running art weekends down in Ocean Grove, New Jersey. So we would put in a whole weekend together of painting, yoga, just getting together a bunch of women to talk and experience art and learn art. So we would do workshops
I
over the
love
weekend.
that.
It was
Are you
amazing.
are you still doing that?
We I I'm we are not doing that any longer
Mhm.
because I have relocated from New Jersey
Oh,
to
sure.
Florida. So, but I am looking in the future, actually, with another creative
Mm.
to hopefully start another weekend or even a week. Hopefully, once we're able to in France. So,
Oh, how wonderful would that be to have a painting weekend in France or a week?
or it would have to be at least 5 days.
Yeah,
Yes,
oh, it really have to be a week.
I know, really.
I
To
think
really,
really
there's so much to see and do there.
there's
So
so much to see and
it
do.
is. It actually was in the plans before un-
Yeah.
our unfortunate situation right now, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Oh, that sounds really wonderful. So when Mary, I'm just going to go back, or not Mary. I'm sorry, Mary's your friend, Tracy. I'm just going to go back and ask about your childhood a little more. So besides the creative work you did with your grandmother, what else were you interested in as a child? Sort of what else influenced you?
Oh, I was very influenced by adventure and
Mm.
travel and
Okay.
different cultures. I My goal the very first time I got on a plane to
Mhm.
Colorado, and I went to Colorado, which wasn't that far, but for me at the time it was far. I'm
Mhm.
like, I need to see the world. I need to experience different places, different cultures. I want to experience hands on. That was my goal, was pretty much how do I get to see the world and
Mhm.
experience all these things that I feel are so important
Right.
for everyone as a whole. And it's an education you can get no other way.
Mhm. Now,
So
was the rest of your family that way when you were growing up?
it's interesting, but no,
Okay.
they actually, I mean, I did move when I was in third, or not third grade. I moved when I was in seventh grade.
Mhm.
And I think by moving, that opens up your world a little bit too, even if it isn't that far, just moving to a new town and having to make new friends. It definitely opens your eyes a little bit to what more there could be out there. And, but for some reason, since I was little, I wanted to experience the world. And I think I honestly could live anywhere.
Okay. I love that. Very
But
nice.
but it's funny because most of my family is not like that at all. It's just in me.
It's just you.
It's just me. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there is something about that. And frankly, I think the fact that you're so creative,
Mhm.
that kind of desire to see other things and learn other things really goes hand in hand with being incredibly creative. So I
Oh,
think that makes sense.
yes, yes. And I
Just
need
part of your DNA.
yes, exactly. It is part of my DNA, exactly. It's a burning inner desire.
So during the years that you weren't doing so much art, because it sounds like you had that a lot when you were younger, and then you kind of got away from it as a teenager and for a few years after that, what were you doing to kind of fill that need during that time?
Well, it comes back to being adventurous and seeing the
Mhm.
world and experiencing the world. So I became a flight attendant.
Okay, that
And
makes sense.
there was a means to the end. Yes. I'm like, how can I see the world? And
Mhm.
I'm like, I want to fly. I love people. I love meeting all different types of people. And I'm like, I am going to, in order to do and see what I want, I'm going to be a flight attendant. And that was my goal since I was probably about 12. That
Wow.
this is how I was going to do it. I was going to see the world. And how am I going to see the world? I'm going to become a flight attendant.
Yeah, that's so smart. So, how many years were you a flight attendant?
I have been a flight attendant, still am, uh,
Okay.
about almost 30 years.
Which airline?
Delta,
Okay.
Delta Airlines. Yes.
And are you working at all right now?
Right now, I am on a leave.
Okay.
So that has actually given me more of an opportunity to get back into my art.
Okay.
Yes. Because for about 3 or 4 years before this, my husband actually retired and we traveled constantly. So we were doing some of our bucket list
Mhm.
as far as traveling for about 2 to 3 years. And we, in the meantime, ended up purchasing or moving, having a second home in Florida. So there was a lot going on between coming to Florida, finding a place here to experience this area, as well as continuing our travels together and experiencing all the things we like to experience. We love to scuba dive. We love all types of water sports. I am fascinated with the ocean, always have been, and
Yeah.
peaceful and serene. I needed that in my life.
So you've been a big traveler. What's your favorite place?
Everybody asks me that, and I have to say, I don't have one favorite place. There's so
Mhm.
many fascinating places, and just when you think you've seen them all, you go somewhere else and you I think every place has its special feel.
Yeah.
I love Greece. I love
Mhm.
Italy. I love Amsterdam. Uh, but I can't say that I love just one place.
Mhm. Yeah.
They all hold something endearing and special to me.
Well, and I think you are similar to me, and I got that feeling when you said you could live anywhere, because that's how I feel, that wherever I am is a wonderful, special place to be. And there's so much to everywhere. There's so much to see and so much beauty and such interesting people everywhere.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
you learn constantly
Yeah.
by experiencing different people, different places, and the art they represent in the world.
Yeah. That's very beautiful. So you said you have children who are artists as well. So tell me a little bit about your children.
They were artists when they were
Okay.
younger. They're probably like me. Hopefully, they'll come back to it when they get a tiny
Yep.
bit older. But believe it or not, my one son is right now in Iraq.
Okay.
He's an infantry officer. And I think one thing that we have instilled, or I try to instill, and that I believe in, is community outreach
Mhm.
and, you know, being being there for whoever needs us at the time. And then my other son, Matthew, he was in Philadelphia. He's in commercial real estate.
Mhm.
So he's definitely very creative, and I think he will use it eventually in the commercial real estate
Mhm.
somehow, whether it be, designing or whatever he decides to do.
I think that's the wonderful thing about being a creative is that you use it wherever you are, whatever space you're in, whether it's writing or the way you talk to people or just your framing of the world, even.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's not
Yeah.
something you leave behind.
No, no. Definitely. Yes. They are definitely using the art that they've learned in speaking
Hmm.
and doing. So I love that.
I love that too. So, if you had to give a piece of advice to a, another artist that's coming up, so someone younger, um, what would you say? Like, what would be your core piece of advice?
My core piece of advice would be live for today
Mm.
and never give up and just be who you are, and don't be afraid
Okay.
to take leaps or take chances, because it's amazing what you'll find if you keep keep going and take that chance. Don't Yeah.
What would you say is the biggest leap you've taken that has led to something?
The biggest leap I have taken would probably be when I became a flight attendant and I moved away from home. Definitely when I moved away from home and I became a flight attendant and I was totally on my own. And uh, went to places I never imagined I would ever be able to get to, and not be afraid. Like, it's you need to be very confident and know, that everything is going to be okay.
Mhm. And have you ever taken a leap that just didn't turn out the way you expected?
I'm trying to think of a leap. Mm, As of right now,
Mhm.
I feel like I've been very fortunate.
Mm.
I don't know if there's I think because I've always had such great support with my family and my friends,
Yeah,
any leap that I've taken, it might not have turned out but
but it worked out.
but it worked out.
Okay.
Yeah. I can't remember a leap where it was, you know, as far as in life, I think the only thing that affected myself or others is, I think in everybody's life, there's some sort of, not leap, but a pain or hardship, or whether it be money, whether it be your health, whether it be, emotional, to have that support group behind you to get you through that would be tremendous. And I hope for everyone that they are able to find that and have that in their lives, because I have been extremely fortunate to have the most phenomenal family, whether it be my husband, my own, in my life, to always be there for me and pick me up when I fall.
Yeah, I think that's huge.
It's huge.
Um, and so where is your art going now? I mean, what are sort of your next goals?
Well, my next goals, I have been doing some illustrating
Mhm.
for a book.
Oh, wonderful.
Being in Florida now a lot, as I've said, I'm all over the. I love being all over, but right now I've been spending a lot of time in Florida, and having the place here, I'm gearing my artwork now more towards bringing out the sunshine
Mhm.
in my artwork, and brightening up this world if at all possible.
Oh, I love that. I think that's a very good transition to having you show us and talk with us a little bit about what you've created for the auction. So I would love to hear, if that's all right with you, I'd love to hear and see what you've done.
Absolutely. So I am actually doing a fabric. On the fabric, I've decided to do something that represents that through anything and everything, the sun will show through.
Mm, I like that.
This is
Oh my, that's beautiful.
this is my
Oh,
representation of shining through no matter what.
I love it. And is
And
that oils?
this is oils.
Okay,
Yes. And I use a brush, but I also use the knife. I love painting with the palette knife. So
that's really beautiful.
I am very excited, and I am pretty much finished. I will be adding a couple last touches to it, but
Mhm.
I
It's it's quite beautiful.
thank you.
And we
Thank
are excited to have it in the auction. I don't know if I've told you, but we now have over 30 artists participating in the auction, which is just phenomenal.
That's awesome. I'm very excited that I could be a part of it. I have in the past been a part of many community driven
Mhm,
fundraisers.
mhm.
I was Hurricane Sandy in New Jersey, and I did or, orphanages in Lima, Peru,
How
regarding.
did you connect with that?
I actually through Delta Airlines, one of
Okay.
my friends, she had asked me if I would help contribute to the orphanage
Mhm.
that they were helping in Lima, and Delta. They would have like not an auction, but they
Mhm.
would have all the homemade artists from Lima would contribute items, and we would help sell them to raise
Mm.
money for the orphanage. And I had sold my paintings, uh,
Nice.
prints of my paintings. I had prints, I had cards. So I helped raise money for the orphanage in Lima. And I actually went down to Lima and I helped paint all of the housing
Oh,
with the children.
That must have been a remarkable experience.
It was an extremely remarkable experience and one I definitely will never forget.
Mm.
And my friends still to this day, Delta contributes, and I like to contribute to helping all those, whether it be in the US or whether
Mhm.
it be elsewhere. As I said, I believe in, us being one as a world,
Yeah,
and it's not just about one person.
yeah. Well, and that's one of the things that I'm so glad you're a part of the auction because that's literally the theme of the auction. We have some artists from Colombia who are participating. We have some artists from the Netherlands who are participating. And even our participants in the US are kind of spread out across the US, different mediums, different backgrounds, different cultures, different abilities, different histories. And so I'm just so excited because I think the goal of the auction is to remind us that we are all in this together and that we are so much more beautiful and diverse if we're all participating.
Exactly.
And that's what I think this art really represents is I love seeing different perspectives from different artists because I think you all bring something so remarkable. And it's so fun to see something that looks so different and yet they're both stunning and spectacular.
We all have something to give. We truly do.
Yeah. So what is your sort of your core philosophy? How do you approach the days and sort of keep at your core?
I approach my day. I wake up in the morning, and the first thing I do is grab a cup of coffee and go out and look at the ocean.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, time to either go for a bike ride, a walk,
Mhm.
get outside. If at all possible, I know some places you can't do that,
Right.
but you can. I mean, I remember running with my dog and bundling up hat, scarf, gloves, you
Mhm.
name it, and it was bitter cold and snowing, and I would be out there running. It doesn't matter what the weather is, just put on those layers and go. Come back home and feel refreshed and ready for the day. And I think it helps you keep a positive outlook on life and count the blessings for what you have because there's so many without.
Yeah.
And like I said, I feel blessed and I hope everyone in their life has some kind of support and blessings, count what you have, not what you don't have,
Mhm.
and if you can help somebody who's down, who doesn't have, makes the world all that much better.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps me going.
Well, I love that. That's very nice. I always ask artists, Tracy, if they have a story from their life that they can tell us. And the rules are kind of that it doesn't have to be the story. It doesn't have to be a big lesson. It's not, here's how I defined myself. It really can just be a funny story or a silly story or something when you think back on your life, a story that pops up. So, do you have something that you could share with us?
A story that changed my life.
It
Or
can be, but it can also just be a story that was fun or that what I say to people is that I want it to be a story that feels like yours. So I had one person talk about trying to fry an egg on the sidewalk when they were a child. And then I've had other people talk about spiritual awakenings. I had somebody talk about um, a story, I think it was maybe just at the beach with their dad, that just was a strong, poignant memory for them. So, really, anything.
okay. I would have to say it would have to be my mom, who has always, even though she worked and was always, no matter how much she worked, she was always there,
Mhm.
um, and did her best and taught me to be so independent and not be fearful, and
Mhm.
make
Yep.
sure that you live for your passion.
And do you have a specific story that you can tell us about your mom?
I think, well, an interesting story about my mom is she had me on her 17th birthday.
Okay.
So, and she worked at a dynamite factory.
That's interesting.
Yes. And she put herself, I saw my mom put herself through school
Mm.
and become a very work for a power company running nuclear plants.
Wow.
So she always no matter what made it happen. She became successful and she didn't let anything hold her back. And she did move from home. She had seven brothers and sisters,
Mhm.
and she was one of the only ones to move from that area to better herself
Mhm.
and better our lives.
She was a dynamo.
She was literally a dynamo. There's nothing that my mom cannot do or teach herself.
Is she still alive?
She is.
Oh, what a great thing.
Yes, yes. And she's solid as a rock.
Wonderful. So, Tracy, though, I do want to go back just for a minute and ask, when you're creating your art, sort of what's your process to create a new piece?
My process goes back to seeing the world.
Mhm.
When I go and I'm running, I'm walking, and I'm visualizing what is going on around me, and I'll take a photo or I'll just keep something in my mind,
Mhm.
and something will hit me and I'll be like, oh, that would make an amazing painting, or I need to paint something similar or like that. But a lot of my paintings come from what I experience and what I see.
Mhm.
And I do some plein air painting. So sometimes I love sitting out on my balcony and just looking and painting what's going on around me.
So that's called plein air painting.
Yeah, plein
I
air
didn't know that.
painting. Yes, you literally go somewhere, you set up your canvas, and you paint whatever's in front of you.
Mhm.
And it could be in your backyard.
Sure.
It could be flowers in your backyard. It could be, you know, the a restaurant or a town that you're sitting having dinner, or you anything and everything can become a painting. And I take those memories or those photographs and I sit, and whatever is going on with my hand and the paint at the time, I do my own interpretation of
Mhm.
that, of
So
what.
it almost sounds like you see that. I mean, I've had photographers say that they're constantly looking for the frame, that
Oh,
as they see the world, they're always looking for how is this going to be framed. Is it the same thing for you that you're always looking at what's going to be the best, um,
absolutely.
what's going to be the best image that I can create?
Sometimes I'll take several photos.
Okay.
And I'll use something from this photo, something from that photo, or something I'm looking at, and interpret that in my painting. So it's not just about, or make me taking just a piece
Mhm.
of what I saw instead of the whole.
Yeah.
So it's definitely seeing beyond the actual photograph.
Mhm. And do you sketch things out or do you go right to painting?
I Most of the time I go right to painting. I have done some of my landscapes are a little more intricate where I do have to place like a little sketch of where I want to put things on the
Hmm.
canvas, but it's pretty much freehand. I pretty much just go on the canvas and go.
And do you have, I'm really interested in the process, so I hope you don't mind all the questions, but do you have a place on the canvas that you generally start? So are you start at the top, you start in the middle, or is it really just depending on what the work is and what hits you?
It's pretty much what the work is and what hits me at the time. And sometimes I'll cover the whole canvas with one color and then go back and add colors. And sometimes I'll just throw the colors like right on there
Hmm.
and just do batches of colors and then re go back into them with other colors
Hmm.
and create what I what I want from the paint, the scenery or the photograph or whatever I'm looking at the time.
I'm very
Half the
interested.
time I'm painting, I'm not even looking at the photograph or anything.
Sure.
I'm in my own world
Yeah.
and just it's in my head and I'm just translating it onto a piece of canvas,
Hmm.
which is
Well,
exciting. It's your Zen moment.
yeah. Yeah, there's something very peaceful about doing something creative. It really, I think, it's like meditation.
Yes, absolutely. It really is. And it's a huge, I think it definitely helps with your day and it
Mm.
relieves so much stress in your life,
Yeah, I
which we
agree.
all experience a lot of nowadays.
Well, Tracy, you are exceptional, and I can't wait to see the panel in perfect in person. It's really beautiful, and I think it will look great in the auction. So I'm excited that you're joining us. I hope there are many other times that we can find ways to work together. And what a pleasure! Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. It's
Is,
my pleasure.
is there
And
anything else you'd like to tell us before we go? It's okay
just,
if there isn't.
I would just say, you know what? When you get up, I would just say you'll always feel better when you put a smile on your face.
Yeah.
It'll always make the world look a little bit better.
That is excellent ending advice. So, everybody, this is Lori. This is Inclusivi-TALKS, and we were talking to Tracey Peer.
Yes.
I thought I saw your name in my head, and then I thought, wait, is that the right name? So, I apologize. So, Tracey Peer, magnificent oil artist, and we will see more of her in the future, I'm sure. And, Tracy, I'm going to be watching for one of your retreats because that sounds fantastic.
Well, I hope you'll be able to join us. It'll be a lot of fun.
I would love you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Hi, everybody. This is Lori, and I am the founder and CEO of Inclusivi-TEA, and we are all about justice and kindness and sustainable fashion. And we have a podcast, Inclusivi-TALKS. And the other day on the podcast, I interviewed Tracey Peer, who is an artist who is participating in our Artists Who Share auction to raise money for coronavirus recovery. And after we talked, at the end of the podcast, I asked Tracey to tell me a story about her life, which she did. But after we talked, she got back in touch and said, oh my gosh, I thought of two more stories that I'd really like to share. And I, of course, said, fantastic. We would love to have you share two more stories. So Tracey is back on just to tell us two more stories about her life that really she just wanted to share with us because they really reflect who she is. So, Tracey, thank you so much for being here again.
Thank you. It's great to be here with you again.
And so I would love to hear your two stories.
Great. I actually just wanted to let everyone know that it doesn't matter where you are, what you're doing, and what the circumstances are when you're going to meet somebody and have them in your life for a long time or forever. And my first story is about how I met my husband, where I was actually on a layover and I went to the MCI Heritage Golf Classic in Hilton Head, South Carolina. and he happened to be there with his whole family, and he was with his dad on the 18th hole and of the playoffs in 1990s. And I was just standing there with some friends of mine, and my husband wanted to talk to me, so he came up with a really funny line. He's like, "Hey, lady, your back's getting fried." Like, okay. I said, "Don't worry about it, it'll turn tan." And needless to say, we ended up going out that evening with several of us, and we just had this connection, and we had a long distance relationship for about a year and a half, 2 years, and we ended up getting married, and we've been married for almost 30 years. And he has always been extremely supportive of everything and anything I did. And he has always been there through thick and thin, and his family also is fabulous and are truly my family also.
Nice.
And he does have 6 brothers and sisters, so it's quite the crew.
It's a big group. So where did you end up moving?
Well, I actually was at another airline, and I had gotten a job with Delta Airlines, and I had lived in South Carolina, and then I moved back to Pennsylvania, and then I ended up in New York with Delta Airlines. So my husband had proposed to me, which is another funny story, but we ended up getting married and moving to Hoboken, New Jersey.
Okay.
So we lived in Hoboken. He worked on Wall Street, and he was there on 9/11, which was tragic, but it's something that we have to deal with every day. We don't know what tomorrow's going to bring, just like we have the COVID today.
Right. So what's your other story?
I'm sorry?
What's your other story? Because you said you had 2 stories you wanted to share.
My other story, this one truly relates to what we were talking about earlier regarding being accepting of others, no matter where they're from. And when my oldest son was in high school, 10th grade, and my younger son was in middle school, my older son's school was asked if anyone would please host an international student from China for a year. And at the time, our house was full of male testosterone. And I'm like, oh, wouldn't it be nice if we brought another girl into our home? And I replied to the head of the program, and I said, we would love to have an international student, and is there any way we could have a girl? And the gentleman that ran the program got back to me. He goes, you really would like a girl, but you have 2 boys. Wouldn't it be easier to have a boy? I said, that's exactly why I would like a girl. I have 2 boys, and I love them dearly, and I think it would be good for our whole family to experience having a girl in our family and for a long period of time, so we can experience somebody from a different country and somebody with different opinions and somebody of the opposite sex. So we ended up getting Jin, who moved in with us, and immediately took to our family, and we took to her. And at first my boys were, why are you doing this? We are perfectly fine. We don't need anybody else in our family. We're so good. And once again, I said, that's exactly why I'm doing this. I said, it's always good to be exposed and be open to having others in your life that are going to open up your world and teach you and learn from each other how our differences, even though we're different, we're alike. So she came, and my boys, my husband, we all fell in love with her, and she fell in love with our family.
Mhm.
And she went to college here in the US, and we had her family come stay with us,
Wow.
where her father didn't speak English. Her mom was trying to speak English. Her grandma came, her aunt came, and they all stayed in our home. And
Mhm.
my husband even went to play golf with her father, who spoke not one word of English. So, and then we took them up to the university where she graduated from. And she worked in New York, and then she went to California, and we've gone to visit her in California.
Mm.
And she then eventually went back to China for a while. She was planning to come back to the US. Right now she is in China. And during what's going on right now,
Right.
we had reached out to her and her family. We actually went on vacation with them in China.
Wow.
And we met them and went to their home in Shenzhen, and then went to Beijing,
Mhm.
and we went to the Great Wall together. And we experienced this vacation with Jin's family, who are
Wow.
from there. And it's something that I think changed our lives,
Mhm.
and not just my own, but my whole family's,
Yeah.
including my parents, my husband's family, just to expose all of us
Mhm.
to someone else and learn from it and be accepting of, because in the end we are all alike, and we all do truly care about each
Yeah.
other.
I
And
love
during
that.
this whole thing, she had reached out to me, and she's like, "How are you
Mhm.
guys? Can I send you masks?" And she sent us a ton of masks
Really nice.
from
And
China.
and she's doing okay?
Her family is doing
Okay.
fine. Her grandma had passed.
Mhm.
I don't think it had anything to do with the COVID, but
Yeah.
it was unfortunate because it was very hard. But her immediate family is doing extremely
Great.
well, and we just truly care about each other, and we'll always be in each other's lives. So
Tracey, thank you so much for calling me and asking to tell these stories too, because I think they fit the auction, where, as you know, we have artists from across the United States, different cultural backgrounds, different ethnic backgrounds, different sexual identities, different genders. And then we also have artists from Argentina, the Netherlands, and Colombia. So
right.
I'm excited about your stories because they fit perfectly with what we're doing and what we care about. And I'm so glad that I met you, and so glad that we've connected with this.
Oh, me too. It's very great meeting you.
Yeah,
And
it's exciting.
we're always, you know what, there's always another story to share tomorrow.
Yep.
So just keep your minds and hearts open.
Thank you so much. And I will talk to you again soon, and looking really forward to seeing your completed work in the auction.
Okay.
All
I'm
right.
looking forward to seeing everyone's art. Thank you
Oh,
very
I know
much.
it's going to be fantastic. Thank you so much, Tracey. And everybody, this was a shortened edition of our podcast, and thank you for listening.
If she's a mountain